Thank you. Oh. There's a lot of echo here, so everybody will be able to hear. So maybe it's important to give a little bit of background about myself. Actually, I've been working at Invest Lithuania for about a year and a half, so it's a very short period of time. But I spent all of my career in private sector, specifically in the US, working in a big finance organization. And I think that's a very important factor because I think having taken over the agency, seeing the difference between how the private sector works and how the public sector works, it's actually came to a big advantage for me. And the way we reorganized it and restructured organization in about a year. So it's been a year and a half, but we started seeing results and we're starting seeing how we have a brand new organization already after a year. The way we modeled it is based on private sector thinking. And there's really nothing specific to it. Private sector, the way people understand it is just that in any private company, we seek profit. And when we seek profit, it's really easy to measure. Whatever we do, it's very easy to measure that at the end of the day, are we making money or are we not making money? But all the processes and all the decisions that are made towards that, they are exactly the same. And so how do we measure results of a non-profit organization and implement the same processes? And for somebody who has worked in the private sector, you know, implementing those types of processes, efficient processes, is second nature. And that's why having experience from working in a private sector, that really came to our benefit to restructure the organization quite quickly and to see the inefficiencies very fast. And what I wanted to do today is present, you know, our thought process. So a case study through what we saw, how we figured out what the problems were, how we created the strategy, how to solve them, how we implemented them, and what finally the results were. So step number one. Okay. What are the main problems? Do problems exist? We cannot really think that, you know, taking over the organization doesn't work. Maybe it works. You know, the worst thing that you can do as the new manager is come and ruin something that works already. So the first thing is to evaluate where we are today. And of course, working for Invest Lithuania, so for those of you who don't know what Invest Lithuania does, it attracts foreign direct investments into the country. So my number one question is, you know, what are the projects we're working on? You know, what will be our results today? And here is the fact. The first question I asked my team was, what are our projected pipeline of projects this year? And this is the answer that I got. 233 projects. Now we have an organization of about 50 people, 45 people. That is an absolute BS. How can we possibly be working on 233 projects? We don't know which ones are real projects, which ones are there just to show that we are working on something. It's just a big list of companies. That's already problem number one. We did not even have a client relationship management system, you know, for an organization that works with potential projects and where it's very important to actually track how we communicate with every client, what stage of the client relationship management we are. There was not even a system how we could evaluate, you know, the potential potential projects. The way we did it, we really had to sit down with every single project manager and ask him and her to give us the list of what they are working on and exactly what they can say about this project. Some of them, problematically, actually, some of the projects that people that had left the company worked on. So we were trying to even call former employees to gather all the information. That's a huge problem. The fact that we don't even know, you know, where we are with our main goal that we're trying to achieve. Another one, here is our results. So this was something that was presented both to the Ministry of Economy, and so Invest Lithuania actually reports to the Ministry of Economy. These are our shareholders. The results seem okay. Now the FDI markets is the general database that collects the data for a number of new foreign direct investment projects that come into different countries. So in Lithuania in 2011, we had 36. Invest Lithuania claims that they actually attracted 29 projects. And the jobs that were supposed to be created were 2,400. And investments 239. Now you look at the results and it seems the natural question is that a lot? Is that too little? Nobody could tell me that. So the natural questions that arose to me, what is the process of measuring results? How do we record that this is an Invest Lithuania project in general? How do we take credit for that? Another one, how do we define what is a potential project? I mean, if we have a list of 233 projects, I can add the number 234, nobody would know. How will they measure whether my organization works effectively or not? What is the process of actually making a potential project into a real project? Then what should the results be indexed against? So the fact that we have 29 projects that Invest Lithuania attracted, is that a big number, a small number? We don't know. And are they sufficient to measure the nonprofit organization like ours? Is only the projects attracted to Lithuania, is that the only measure that we should have when we have different departments like analytics department, like marketing department? At the end of the day, some of the work that we're doing does not really directly translate to the actual results. And so when it doesn't translate to the actual results, how can we claim that the only measure is the new projects attracted to Lithuania? And of course, how should the goals be set? Because for any profit-seeking organization, they have to set specific goals for themselves and try to achieve them. So these are the natural questions, and here is what I found out, because the first thing that we needed to do is actually answer those questions to ourselves. We spent about a month to go through those 233 projects. It was a big, big, big task. Turns out that actually 145 of them, so about more than half of them, what we called are passive. So they're just basically on the list to look like we are doing a lot. Some of them are dead, so we call them black. We actually, to make it simpler and so that everybody understands, we actually had so many discussions. What is a blue project? What is a yellow project? What is a green project? So black is dead. Gray is passive, meaning that we have a contact, but there's really no project in sight. Green, we establish contact. We still don't know whether there's a potential project that could come to Lithuania. Yellow, where we think Lithuania is already shortlisted. And blue, where really we think that the project is very realistic to actually come to Lithuania. Now, this snapshot was done a month after I started at the organization. I'm pretty sure that out of these 22, it's not 22, it's probably 5, because I could not even double check this. I had to completely rely on everybody who provided the information for me because I didn't even know those names. Just knowing the results that we achieved over the next year, I'm pretty sure none of these 22, or not none, but just very few of those 22 actually became what we call blue projects. So that's problem number one. And this is the system that we automatically implemented. Every single project that we're working on currently has a color code. And that is very important to evaluate for us. First of all, how to prioritize our time, because for us, the number one priority is to work on yellow projects, because we are shortlisted and the probability of getting that project is anywhere from 25 to maybe 75%. We need to really work on this, as opposed to on green. And that's the problem. That was the problem when I first started. People were not prioritizing the time. When they have a list of 233 projects, they spend equal amount of time on a blue project, on a yellow, on a green, and on even gray ones. So having a color code really makes people prioritize their time better. Secondly, evaluates where we can set our goals, where we know that We actually assign probabilities to every project. The project managers evaluate the risks, how to actually increase that probability. And we also can set the goals much better because we know exactly what's in our pipeline. We know exactly what we need to do. Is this number 57, is it too big or too small compared to our history? How we need to actually, now that we have a lot of yellow ones, we need to start working on the green ones because we need new projects to come to, new contexts to be established. And so every project manager now has specific goals to generate different colors over time. Here is the problem number 2. How do we index our results? And so the natural question for me was those projects that were attracted to Lithuania in 2011, how do they compare to other countries? So the only database that we can use, and actually it also took us a while to figure out what is the right index to use. In Lithuania, for those who are in Lithuania, people use a lot of different numbers, and it's a big misconception because if we compare ourselves to statistics data or Lithuanian central bank data, it will have nothing to do with what we actually do. FDI Markets is the only reliable database that measures how many new projects come to the country. And so when we looked at different countries, Lithuania was somewhere in the middle. But then, of course, some countries are bigger than others. Turns out that the planned jobs created per capita in Lithuania, we were number 2 after Poland. So actually, it's not that bad. Now, how could that possibly be? If we don't have a system, we don't have a client relationship management system, how could it be that Lithuania is number 1 and more importantly that Invest Lithuania has good results? And here is an answer. We started looking at actually what we reported in 2010 and 2011, and here is a big problem in government organizations. When you cannot measure it money-wise, because there's really no cash, no profit, everybody will tend to overblow the results. Everybody will want to report as good results as possible. So the system and the process of actually having robust process and reliable process of actually recording and having very strict guidelines when the process is, when the result is really attributable to us. So here is what we found out. In 2011, actually, instead of 29 projects, we actually should have recorded only 18. Why is that? I believe 6 of them were dead. So meaning they announced that they're going to invest in Lithuania, but they never came. But very happily, Invest Lithuania put a check mark, never followed up. Did the project come to Lithuania or not? Turns out it died. Another one was a very important part is how do we attribute which project actually came through our work and which project would have come to Lithuania anyway. Turns out that actually, and this is the way we have our guidelines, that now we have a scale from 1 to 10. All of that didn't exist before. So from 1 to 10, where the project manager has to assign a number once the project is announced already that came to Lithuania, what was Invest Lithuanian's contribution to bringing the project to Lithuania. Only when it's 6 and above, we actually put it into the high category. Now 6, you can only get a 6 if the project manager spent at least 40 hours working on it. 40 hours is 1 week when you only dedicated working on this project, and that's not including the work of marketing department, analytics department, and so on. So I really think that 40 hours is already a high contribution. The majority of projects that we work on currently, it's way more than 40 hours. And we actually do record now hours that every project manager, or actually every employee, works on specific projects and on specific tasks so that we can optimize our work better. So it turns out 44% was high, 56% was low, but there are quite a few that we could not even put into a low category. So they had put in that number of 29 projects that were literally took 1 meeting. So somebody, came to Lithuania, for example, IKEA. They came to meet with the head of Invest Lithuania. He spent 45 minutes talking to them. check mark, you know, we attracted IKEA to Lithuania. That just is not, it's not our project. So we, from now on, do not record it as our project, right? And of course, if we adjust all those numbers down, turns out that the results are not as, definitely as good as they should have been. And so that's really raised a lot of problems for us. First of all, unreliable data. So for a non-profit organization, data reliability is absolutely essential. And you have to have a process, and you have to have check marks, and you have to have audited results, and you have to have the whole process of auditing those results in order to assure that the data is reliable. Number two, there was no clear strategy. Another problem that we faced was that when we looked at those 29 projects, you know, it ranged from a shop for 2 or 3 people, so 3 people were to be hired, a retail shop, to Western Union with 400 people to be hired. Why would we work on a project that would create 3 jobs and it's opening a shop in Lithuania? So definitely we had no clear strategy what Invest Lithuania should focus on. Really questionable goals. I mentioned my first question was, so what projects are we bring, you know, what's our potential pipeline? My deputy director, who was gone from the organization shortly after, brought me that list of 233 projects and 1 sheet of very flashy logos and said, these are the potential projects. I said, what? So definitely very questionable goals. Client complaints. That was another thing. My first week, the first 2 months, all I did was saving projects. I was getting phone calls and emails saying how we're gonna leave Lithuania, and not only that we're gonna leave Lithuania, and we're gonna tell everybody not to ever come back here. Because the problems that we are facing, the bureaucracy that we're facing is just absolutely unbearable. You told us, your organization told us that for us to build a factory is going to take that long. For us to fill out the application will take us long. It's been now a year, and all our plans are falling apart. We're leaving, and we're gonna we're gonna advertise against you. My first week, I got a phone call from the very high up person from a very important company that the agency had PR'd for the whole entire year as one of the biggest success stories in Lithuania, exactly threatening to do that. So client complaints was another thing. Inefficient processes. Everybody was doing everything. So a project manager was responsible for finding new leads, going to conferences, communicating with the potential project, with the clients. Once the clients decided to come to Lithuania and they were calling them to complain about the bureaucracy, the same project manager was trying to help without knowing at all how to do it. We're trying to go to all these meetings at different ministries, at municipalities, how to help the project not to die and so on. And not only that, they had to do their own expensive, after going on trips and write reports, you know, how many litas they spent on taking a taxi and so on. Absolutely inefficient processes. Everybody was doing everything. And no process for budget allocation. The agency, of course, has an assigned budget, and it was completely, whoever thinks of doing anything, they go to the administration department, they say, do we have money? And the administration department decides, sure, we still have money, so you can do this. I mean, that is just definitely not a very efficient way of cost allocation. And a big focus on process and not results. Quite a few people at the agency, and I think that's a big problem in government in general, they said, but we did this. So I would ask, so what did you do to solve that problem, where the CEO was calling me and threatening that the company will leave Lithuania, and said, I called the ministry. And, well, I did my job. I call the ministry. That's the definition of focusing on a process and not results. And that actually, that's an example where I faced every day with everybody, where everybody thought that their job was to do an action. Not the result, not to achieve the result, but I did what I was supposed to do, now it's not my fault anymore. And no guiding business principles. And what I mean by that is myself having spent 7 years at Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs has 10 guiding business principles that they created more than 100 years ago. I thought it was absolute BS. Why do you need this? You know, clients come first. Quality is important. You know, our reputation is everything. You know, all of those nice words that really seem meaningless. I finally got it when I got into Invest Lithuania. When people do not understand what the agency is about, they do not have the guiding principles. For me, it was absolutely clear that we are paid by taxpayers' money. So when we are paid by taxpayers' money, we cannot possibly, you know, spend money without being accountable for it, or spending on luxurious things. So it's one example where I think that everybody in the agency needs to understand that the one principle, for example, would be that we are financed by the taxpayers. And when you know that, I think you make very different decisions in many different ways. And I'm going to go over our guiding principles that we're trying to implement it. It takes time, but we're trying to implement it. So, with all those problems, the decision was we're building from scratch. So there's nothing to fix here. We have to completely build from scratch. Number one is, of course, developing our strategy. So first of all, what is our role as an agency? What differentiates us from other companies in Lithuania, from other agencies in Lithuania? You know, how can we justify our existence to the taxpayers? And thirdly, what do we do in order to implement that? So first of all, very clear, what is our role? Attract foreign direct investments. That is now a number one priority. We are Invest Lithuania. Support investors that are already in Lithuania. So, of course, the fact that we already have companies in Lithuania that are our biggest ambassadors, they know a lot of people abroad, but not only that, probably if we look at statistics, over half, sometimes less, sometimes more, of the projects are expansion projects. So if investors are happy in Lithuania, they are expanding in Lithuania. So we cannot forget working with existing investors. And another one, increase Lithuanians' economic visibility among global business community. And that's part of what our marketing department does, because for us, probably the most challenging thing is that companies never even put us on a list. They don't know about Lithuania. So we have to raise awareness about Lithuania, and we cannot do this through tourism, or we cannot do it through basketball. It's actually the companies have to start thinking about Lithuania as a place for investment opportunities. So that's another big goal for us. So what differentiates us? Because in Lithuania we have banks, we have consultants, we have other agencies, we have Enterprise Lithuania Tourism Department. We have to find what we do that is different from everybody else. So number one, and this was a very, very important point, what is the projects that we are working on? Do we work on mergers and acquisitions? So for example, we get a lot of those questions where we get contacted by a private equity fund, for example, or an individual, or maybe some politician calls us and says, oh, I met this really rich guy and he has a lot of money, he wants to buy something in Lithuania. That's basically an acquisition of a company, existing company in Lithuania. That is not what we do, because there are banks, there are investment banks, there are consultants, there are lawyers that know the Lithuanian market very well. They have their own clients. They are looking for potential acquirers. We do not want to compete, and we don't have the capabilities to do that, and we don't have the knowledge to do that, and we don't want to do that, because actually investment bankers cost a lot, and we want that market to exist in Lithuania. We don't want to cannibalize it, so we do not do acquisitions. Another thing is, of course, financial flows. So for example, a company comes and says, I need money, like I need an investment. You know, we also don't do that. We don't look for financing options for companies because again, that's the job for banks, that's the job for investment banks, consultants, lawyers, and so on. And what we do is when we get inquiries like that, we have a list of partners that we refer them to and we say, please contact them. And you can get that information. You can find partners in Lithuania. We don't do that. What we do is greenfield investments. And greenfield investments is a new factory. It's a new office that is being built in Lithuania. What it means is that there's nothing, and all of a sudden there's a factory. So how else would they come to Lithuania? Who else can provide that service? Sometimes it happens. So sometimes it happens that, let's say, a law firm in Lithuania has already client relationship somewhere, and they talk to them and they convince them, because for them it's also potential business in Lithuania. They convince them to come. It doesn't happen very often. It's not their, you know, it's not their core business. For us, it's core business. For core business to find companies and convince them to build something new in Lithuania, nobody else has that as their core business in Lithuania, and that's, as a government organization, we fill that gap. We do not try to compete with the private sector. And export-oriented, so that's another important part. Export-oriented because a lot of projects come to us and say, well, we want to sell, you know, we have this amazing project, we are going to build an office and we're going to sell it, our products. So we say no, you know, you come to Lithuania to take advantage of our consumers, you know, you are interested in doing business here, you're not an investor. For us, it has to be export-oriented projects. So we have very well-defined goals, and when we record our results, if they don't meet this criteria, that means we wasted our time. That project is not on our results page. Another one, business-friendly institution, and that's probably a very difficult task because we are a government agency, but we deal with foreign investors. We are the face of Lithuania. When they come to Lithuania, they want to get a good impression about how the business environment is in Lithuania. So we have to build an institution that is business-friendly. We're not the ones that are process-oriented. We're not the ones that investors come and say, you know, we are dealing with this problem and with this problem, and we don't know how we're going to solve it. And before, our project managers used to say, oh, I understand. That is not business friendly because for a foreign investor, we are the government. So we are a government institution, and they do not see the difference between us and between the Ministry of Economy, between the Ministry of Environmental Affairs. We are the face of the government. And so that's why the decision that we made, and I'm going to talk about it a bit later, that we have now a department that deals with the problems. We don't just listen to them and pat them that, you know, we understand, but we actually solve the problems. High quality and targeted country marketing. I probably don't need to elaborate on that. You know, when we try to build Lithuania's reputation, it has to be absolutely highest quality. It was not before. I mean, myself coming from the US after many years, when I looked at our brochures, I was absolutely shocked when the first page was what Lithuania looked like in the 16th century. I mean, who cares for a business person who is doing, who's trying to make an investment decision? And what do? A very important one is generate new projects. I mean, that is not what we did before. So when we evaluated the list of projects that came to Lithuania, all those results after we cleaned them up, turned out that all of those projects, I think with an exception of one or two, just came to us. It was not our project. It was referred to us already by consultants or lawyers, not through proactive work. Our work is supposed to be that we are actually generating new projects. Support all potential investors until decision to invest. So the project manager takes care of the potential projects from the beginning that the contact is made until the decision is made. And of course, in some of the evaluations that we get, that's one of the most important factors, because a lot of times it's those soft things that actually make make the companies make the decision. The soft things where they just feel welcome here and they feel like they have friends here. And that's why our project managers, when we hire them, that's exactly the skill set that we're looking for, is that they would be the ones that the clients would feel very comfortable with. Marketing PR campaigns. Use financial support prudently. I'm not going to go into that, but one of our functions is also to decide how much financial support the agency should be giving. To be honest, when I first started there, that's how I realized what we do. We were just support distributing agency. We were not doing anything else other than different consultants would bring clients to our office and says, how much money are you going to give us? And that's definitely not our function. But we still do that, and we completely changed the system, how we evaluate every project. We changed the system so that we have negotiating power. Our aim is to give as little financial support as possible, because we don't think that that's the main reason why investors should come to Lithuania, and so on. And of course, we do have a team that are assigned during the implementation of the project period, because now we are not just waiting to hear when the problem occurs. Once the decision is made to invest in Lithuania, there is a person who follows up with the company on a consistent basis to just check, is everything going okay? Do you know that you still have to do A, B, and C? When you do B, then don't forget that you will have to contact this person and that person. We are being proactive to make sure that that the clients implement the projects as smoothly as possible. And another one, improve investment environment. And that's a very new function. No other agency in the world does that. And I think that's what differentiates us, is that when we actually deal with a lot of investors and we know what hurts them. And so when we know what hurts them, it's not our job to just solve that problem, but we know that when we take every problem as a systemic problem. And when we know that it's a systemic problem, we know that it's actually, it should be eliminated in general. And so our team actually, and this is probably the closest to what different ministries do, their goal is to improve investment environment. I'm going to elaborate a little bit more about that later. We redid the organization. So clearly now we have investment development department. So here are the salespeople. The salespeople are the ones that most of them have studied abroad. They speak fluent languages. They're very personable. They're very friendly. They like to deal with people. They're the ones who are responsible, and it's probably the toughest job, because they all have targets, how many projects they need to bring to Lithuania. They work in teams, and they specialize in different countries, in different sectors, which they didn't do before. It's a very different function from project implementation and investment environment team, which is a new team, and those are the ones that I mentioned that help implement the project smoothly, as well as actually work with different institutions in the government to improve the business environment in Lithuania in general. And of course, we have marketing and communication. Now, one of the things that was very peculiar to me, not only that everybody was doing everything, different departments were not communicating with each other. So the investment development department before, it wasn't called like that, they were complaining that the marketing was producing those brochures that they could not use afterwards. And I was like, so why don't you tell them? Well, we did, but they're not listening to us. So then I go to the marketing department and I say, why are you producing brochures that clearly do not work with the clients? And I said, well, when we asked for feedback, when we were creating them, you know, the project managers were not telling us what they need. So what we did, and that was actually a very important thing, I decided that we need to renovate our offices. We removed all the walls, so now we have an open space. Everybody sits together. At first, I know, there was not a single person that approved of that. They said, oh my God, how are we going to be able to work together in one space? We won't be able to concentrate. And I said, you know what? Here I'm using my veto power. We're doing this because I know it will work. Everybody's happy now. There's not like we are running out of space, and we decided one of the teams to move one of the teams to one of the side offices. It was a huge protest. How dare you think that we should not be sitting together with everybody else? It absolutely worked. So for the communication, it didn't work automatically. There was a lot of talking and there was a lot of complaining. He was supposed to do this, she was supposed to do that, she didn't tell me, he didn't tell me. I mean, that for him as a manager, you know, I had to deal with a lot of that. But currently it's day and night. So at least the brochures that are being made, the videos that are being made, you know, everybody is going to be happy with that. And of course, the project implementation, they work very closely with investment development department, because once the investment development project manager, they have their own clients, they brought them to Lithuania, they want them to be happy. So they are working with this department to make sure that they are providing very good service to the client that they already feel so close to. So definitely working together is very important, but defining very specific functions in the organization. Implementation part, that was the toughest part. So one thing is theoretically what is good to do. How do we implement it? So first, clearly define the roles of every department and responsibilities. There were a lot of discussions, there were a lot of working groups where we were defining, you know, at which point this is not my responsibility, at which points is their responsibility, but it's possible to do. It's not in written form, it's more psychological. It's more through, you know, working on the projects and figuring out as we go. I think at this point we still have some questions, who is responsible for what, but that's becoming less and less of an issue. Very tough. And this is government organization, competent people matched relevant responsibilities. As I mentioned, investment development department, any company in Lithuania would want a good salesperson who has great communication skills, who is smart, who can bring a new client to Lithuania, to the company. How do we hire people that are able to do that? I mean, to be honest, we had a lot of turnover in the organization in the year. And there were a lot of people there in the agency that had been working there for 16 years. I don't know how they could have possibly been the ones bringing projects to Lithuania. Not talking even about English skills, but just basic communication skills. You know, when you're working with foreign investors, you sort of have to understand the mentality. You have to know what to say, what not to say, and so on. So we hired a lot of new people. And so my first challenge was, how do we attract people as a government agency that does not have good reputation to work for a government agency, get paid little, because in the private sector you get more, and to get the best people? That was a challenge. The first, we hired actually an HR company to help us do that. And I remember that first meeting where he said, well, of course you won't be able to get those people. I said, what? You know, I think this is the best job in Lithuania. You know, for me it is. You know, I'm obviously couldn't be making much more money in the private sector or whatever in Lithuania, not in Lithuania. And I am there, I'm here because I feel like I'm doing something really important. So it's how you sell it. You know, what this agency is about, what's the vision of this agency, you know, where we want to be. So it's not only that you're going to be working for Lithuania, we're actually building a new organization. We are going to be here and be part of the building team. And you're going to be really contributing to where we want to get to. And so the first half a year was tough. I was fortunate enough that we had a few people that were really great. And we really relied a lot on those people. So for me as a manager was motivating the good people, not dismotivating them when they saw a lot of people leaving, because obviously, you know, there was a lot of fear in the agency. What's going to happen? Am I next? Am I leaving next? So really had to communicate to the people that I was really relying on, that they are core to this organization. And really without them, nothing could have happened. In the meantime, word of mouth happened. So the few people that were really doing well, they started telling their friends that this is a great place to be. All of a sudden, we started getting CVs from the Big Four, from Deloitte, from PwC, from big banks. Now it's not an issue to hire people. We actually have the best team, and we're really getting so many CVs and such high quality people that I think we are really becoming one of the most desirable places to work for. It's not an easy task. You have to build that reputation, and that reputation comes together with your results, together with how happy the people are in the agency and the word of mouth, also the PR that you have to do in the country. So part of the communication strategy, you know, if you see some articles about what we do, it's also because we want to hire the best people. lean internal processes, so obviously everything that, how the processes are working, everybody is always being asked, why are you spending so much time on this and not on that? And so again, it's becoming psychological. It's not something that you can write instructions. It's sort of part of the business principles of the agency, how everybody knows that they need to be efficient. I think the best way to make people efficient is to give them a lot of work. The worst thing that can happen when they don't have enough work, so that's when they can be inefficient. So my strategy is to give much more work that they can handle, and then it's up to them to create lean processes. And a lot of times I see people when they're already, staying late and doing this, and I was like, look, you do not have to stay late. I know I'm giving you a lot of work, but it's up to you how to optimize the processes. It's up to them. It's not going to be me who's going to tell them how to do every single task. Every single one of them have to figure it out on himself or herself. And implement business-friendly culture. I already elaborated on that. And of course, smart selection of business partners and suppliers. Very important, because the whole sales process of bringing the project to Lithuania, we don't do it ourselves. Once the clients come to Lithuania, they have to meet with everybody. That was one of our biggest risks. All of a sudden they're happy, we gave them all this great presentation. We take them to, let's say, to talk to some consultants, and they say, Lithuania is okay, but there are not that many people already that you could hire in IT. And I'm like, what? We were just telling them the opposite, or they would say something without really understanding that they are doing us a disservice. So currently what we're doing is we're working very closely with all business partners to make sure that our story is consistent with everybody. Generating new leads, and here I'm just going to quickly go through some of the examples how basically all of those to-do things, we have a strategy now. So how to achieve this, we have a very concrete strategy and very clear, focused steps. So first is we need to have target countries. Of course, you probably hear in the media, the politicians are traveling all over the world, from Malaysia to China to wherever. We cannot possibly do that. We don't have resources for that. So what are our target countries? What are our target industry segments? So again, we cannot possibly cover the whole world across different sectors. So what should be our targets? What are our target companies, and what is the proper marketing and communication sales strategy? And just a very quick example how we determine, for example, target countries. And we have very strong analytics department. And analytics department, I'm not going to elaborate on that, but their function is to help us with robust analysis, both to present to clients as well as to figure out our strategy. So country selection criteria, projects that already, the number of projects that come to Lithuania, as well as countries that invest in the region the most. So obviously, those will continue to do that, and those should be our target countries. And that's why it's the following countries as the first priority. And with first priority, we actually have very focused each country strategy, what we do with each country. Second priority is the ones we actually have very strong representations at different agencies, and we see interest in Lithuania. Here it's more of a marketing PR strategy. We don't do direct sales and direct B2B meetings. Just to show, when you look at the target countries, these are the FDI projects in Lithuania since 2008. So exactly those are our target countries, because if these were the largest investors in Lithuania, they definitely will continue to do that. And so, for example, we get asked, for example, why don't you go to Spain to do something? That's not our target country. And I actually don't have the best relationship with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because we get invitations to go and present in many different exotic countries. Many times we have to say no, because it's not an efficient way to allocate resources. Target segments, very similar. We look at what is currently happening in the markets and what the trends are in the market, in the world in general, where investments are moving, as well as what the Lithuanian potential is. And so we figure out what our target sectors are. We also have a very integrated approach, and here we work together with the marketing department, where we first build awareness in every country, public relations campaign, lead generation, developing relationships, and we actually have a timeline for every country, what actions we're going to be making. Because, for example, if a project manager is interested in generating new leads from Sweden, of course, we're going to work together with the marketing department. If we are publishing some articles in that country, that means that there's higher awareness. It's more likely that somebody will pick up the phone. And so we have a very, the very robust process how we do this. Very important, especially for a public sector. One of the things, of course, at Invest Lithuania, and that's the motivational factor for hiring people, is you're going to be traveling the world, because we're not going to be able to attract investments by sitting at home. We do have to go out to conferences, meet people. And in the public sector, that's a motivational factor. And when I first started, the director of the investment development department came to me and said, well, I think it's this girl's turn to be going to a conference because she's kind of dismotivated. It's time for her to go. And I said, what? No, we are going to, it's cost us money. It's taxpayers' money. We are going to conferences only when we see, first of all, that it's worth going there. Second of all, only people that can bring the best value can go to conferences. They can be learning at home. Then when they are ready, then they go. Not only that, is how do we pick which conferences to go to? I personally get probably 5 invitations every day. Today I got an invitation to China, to Dubai, to Brazil. It would be perfect if I could just be traveling the world, but that's not my job. And so that's why we implemented a system, and there's one person responsible to scanning all possible events that we should be attending and measuring results. What exactly, how many contacts were made in every single event, what type of event, what we're trying to achieve, and so on. It's actually just a snapshot of how we evaluate it. It's a very robust process. And of course, communication abroad is PR campaigns that we do abroad. We actually attend conferences, we do brochures, we target the foreign audience, and also articles being printed in foreign press. Just an example how we did the PR project in Germany. Since we have very little time, I'm just going to skip that, but it's also a very integrated approach where we hire a company to help us, where it's about bringing journalists to Lithuania, placing articles in the media, and so on. Relationship management, that's also very much connected to having a business-friendly environment at Invest Lithuania. And so how we deal with the clients is very important. And of course, we always want to provide the highest level of service. And so we're never happy. We always think about how can we do it even better. High quality analytical and biased information, very important, because the first step towards the company deciding to invest in Lithuania, they need the data to verify whether it's a good environment. If they find a mistake, or if they find that we are lying, that's it. One mistake then completely can break it. And so for us, it's very important. I was in one meeting where we had sent some information, and the person was sitting in front of me, he's like, you know what, let me double check. You're salespeople, you always lie. And so he had another source, and he really checked every single number, and he did not find a single difference. And that company, it's not official yet, but it's most probably going to come to Lithuania. Prompt communication. If we get a question, we have a system where within 24 hours you have to respond, and even if you don't know the answer, you say, thank you for your question, I'm looking it up, I'm going to follow up. And so, of course, based on our priorities, the answer is being given when the answer is being given. It's also very important. It didn't exist before. Proactive approach. I mentioned that we're not waiting for the clients to come to us to complain or to say what they need. We are proactively reaching out to them, but really trying to find that balance between not being too salesy and too zealous about it. Involvement of business partners. A lot of times, we work with a lot of business partners in Lithuania. We want to have full control of the process, as I mentioned. We want to make sure that everybody is telling the same story. And business-friendly interface between government and the client. Improving investment environment. This is probably I'll go over very quickly, but again, we actually identified the main problems that we are working with, and that's labor market, spatial planning, infrastructure-related initiatives, but also investment environment initiatives like, for example, one of the main factors for investors is that they need qualified people. So for example, if we hear that IT specialists are already their salaries are increasing, it's not that easy to hire them. We are proactively working with Ministry of Education, with a lot of nonprofits, to encourage people to study certain specialties, to make some incentive programs for people to study those specialties and so on. This is how we do the whole process of problem solving when it comes to investment environment. So first, identification of the problem, evaluation, whether it's really a real problem, because whether maybe it's just one person or one company that's dealing with it. Stakeholder mapping, so who else is interested in solving the problem, because we are really, we need support to do that. Partnership building, also other organizations and other ministries and institutions that are already working on it. So we want to make sure that we know who is already doing what. Communication, very important, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit. Policy advocacy, PR. PR is very important. If we want to change the labor code, I think without PR, we're not going to achieve that. Implementation is, how we do it. And so what I want is that our team is not just another institution that is working on the problem, but we actually take ownership of it without officially being assigned to do this, but more we are like project coordinators. For me, the result is not that I called somebody or I went to a meeting. For me, it's like, what exactly have we achieved already? What changes have been made? And solution implemented. Guiding principles. This is a list of what I mentioned, what is important that every employee in the agency understands, that whatever decision they're making or whatever they're doing, it has to fit into those 10 guiding principles. And that's number one, working towards Lithuania's progress. Is what you're doing, does that contribute to that? Number two is boosting knowledge economy, highest performance standards, professionalism, result orientation, cost effectiveness, time effectiveness. That's also very important in a non-governmental institution. If you're spending time on something, could you be spending time on something else? You're costing money to taxpayers. Transparency, of course, quality, and team satisfaction and motivation, because without that, obviously, we won't be able to do anything. And communication strategies. So to achieve all of that, of course, without telling people, why it is important, without telling people that foreign investments in Lithuania bring a lot of benefits. There will be a lot of questions. Why do we need an agency like this? Then we won't be able to hire the best people. If we want to do some policy advocacy, we also try to organize events like here, where we organized together with the president and a few companies in Lithuania to talk about increasing making the quality of professional education better and so on. And measuring results. To finish up, where are we today? And how did this all pay off for us? So of course, how many projects did we attract to Lithuania? So last year, and of course, investment projects take a lot of time. So last year, we're going through reorganization, as well as the fact that, whatever projects that we got in 2012, a lot of it depended on what we did prior to that. So we were actually very happy and lucky that we ended up having 19 projects, over 1,000 new jobs created this year, and through the end of October, or through today, we already have 22 projects, so it's our record numbers, and we have jobs to be created 1,547. Now, if we look at the failed projects, of course, this happens. In 2012, we had one project that changed their mind and they left. They actually postponed it, the project, so we have only one compared to 11 before. And this year, we have 0. So far, for all we know, all of them will come to Lithuania. High contribution So again, that proportion should be increasing when we are recording our results. You know, it should come close to zero. I mean, to 100, because but we will always have low contributions as well. But high contribution is definitely went up from 38% to 86%. So truly, these are our projects. High economic value projects. Again, we see a big growth from 89 to 77%. And here, the last one, which I didn't tell, it's one of the changes we implemented is for financial support, is that we actually encourage companies to do social corporate responsibility, which we call shared value investments. And so, for the ones that commit to do shared value investments, they get a higher support number. And so not only that, out of all of these projects, 45 of them are planning to actually do social corporate responsibility in Lithuania. If we look at where we are, how many jobs to be created, these are not necessarily very reliable data yet. It's only through August, and it's also a lot of data comes with a lag. We are currently #1 in Eastern Europe in terms of how many new jobs will be created per capita. So even looking at the index number, we are really not only record results historically, but also record results in the region. Simplified procedures, this is for the investment environment department, is actually we decreased the document review period for financial support from 69 days to 37 days. And really the team mapped the whole process, and their goal was to minimize it as much as they can. And it was not just to make it half, it was minimize it. And so here they really reviewed every single step, how necessary the step was, how fast it can be done, and now the average review period is 37 days. We changed the application form for financial support, which makes it much easier and faster to fill out the applications, and also the satisfaction for the clients is much higher. We also provide support to fill out applications so that there's less back and forth to make that process faster. And also we implemented very clear quantitative as well as qualitative criteria that we communicate to the companies to evaluate how much financial support they would be getting. Events. This is a very interesting thing for me because it's very relevant for a public sector. We actually, this is expenditure on events, not these numbers, but the size of the bars. So in 2013, I'm not putting the number because you know, it's irrelevant, but we spent 4 times less on events, but this is how many we attended, 47 versus 15. So with 4 times less expenses, we attended 3 times more events compared to 3 years ago. That just shows that we're not doing it to motivate employees anymore. Employees are motivated because they're working for Lithuania and they are making the most out of the taxpayers' money. Also, what we're trying to do is how do we participate in those events with the highest possible impact. And so one of the new things that we actually implemented is that we try to bring speakers to the events. So it's not only that we go to conferences where we, you know, schmooze around and give our cards. We're thinking, how do we participate so that Lithuania is much better visible? And so what we do is we talk to organizers and we ask them to let our speakers actually present about Lithuania, and the speakers would not be us. The speakers would be success stories in Lithuania, and we actually work a lot with the partners in Lithuania, so companies that are successful in Lithuania, trying to convince them why they should be going to this conference and presenting about how they built Barclays in Lithuania. And here we don't have to sell, it sort of sells for itself, and it gives really very good results. We also track now how many contacts we get at every event. If that number really falls short of our expectations, we eliminate and scratch that organizer. We're not going to go to these events anymore. We really have very specific forms that every project manager fills out every time. We track how many of those contacts become leads. So it's not enough for a project manager to come and say, I got 20 business cards. No, you know, every couple of months they have to send an update how many of those contacts became actual leads, because for us it's not to get business cards. For us it's to get actual leads, to get projects. PR, very important, and here I'm going to mention very quickly that we did a survey in Germany, and so actually in Germany, the view in the newspapers about Lithuania prior to, from March to July 12th, was actually negative to neutral. After our PR campaign of half a year, we actually now have a neutral to positive. Not only that, actually the articles on Lithuanian economy rose from 700 to 2,000. So that means that in German media, people read not only about our sports, but also about our economy as well. And of course, what we did is, I'm not going to elaborate on this, but we had the journalists visiting Lithuania. We had 13 articles placed in German media. We also actually had a snowballing effect where we showcased Brolis Semiconductors, one of the startups of Lithuania, who actually did their PhDs in Germany, and they became so popular in Germany that Deutsche Welle, which is the main TV station in Germany, came to Lithuania, filmed them, and showed them on the big news. And so really that PR campaign really paid off to us. What we see, we already had 3 business delegations from Germany. We talked to the chambers of commerce as well as to partners that work with Germany. They have many, many more requests already for information about Lithuania. Do we have an investment from Germany? Not yet, but we are really working on it. It's really important that we do everything in integrated approach. Social media, that's another outlet that we're trying to do. Is you can see how many Facebook followers increase, so we're also targeting, that's part of the market department, to also target higher numbers in everything that we do. Website is another advertising tool for us. You can see how, and we implemented a lot of different techniques, so Google AdWords and other things that I'm not familiar with, but the marketing department is. And you can see how the number of clicks has been really increasing a lot. And not only that, the growth has been consistent. These are the unique visitors to our website. And it also shows an example that we're tracking everything. So it's not just the number of projects. It's whatever action we do, we want to see what the results are. And very happily, if we look at the, I don't know how reliable that data is, but still a nice graph for you to show, is these are, when we look at different agencies in the world, how many per month visits they get. Lithuania is number 3 after Ireland, you know, and we are actually now above Czech Republic and Poland. So that's definitely a really good result. And we think that our website is still not being used efficiently because we're still not getting many leads from the website. It's probably more for information gathering. Cost effectiveness. You know, we achieved all of that with lower budget. So last year we actually spent 3% less. And so we got all of those results, as well as if we measure it by, look how many companies visited in 2012 versus 2011. And not only that, more companies visited, they got much better service, 47% more. Number of consultations that we provided, how many inquiries we got, 89% more. Analytical reports, 55% more. So what that means is that there were a lot of inefficiencies. So you don't need more money to achieve higher results. The number 1 step is to actually eliminate the inefficiencies. Investors' feedback. Investors love us. And so we get so many compliments. We started gathering them. Here we're just highlighting a few. We really, after every visit, after every project that comes to Lithuania, we get these emails that really makes everybody cry, how you are the reason why we came to Lithuania and so on. And I think that's definitely a very, very important factor for us, because we want to be a very good face for Lithuania, and positive feedback is really very important. External recognition. So not only that, the word of mouth travels. And this year I was invited to give a speech at a World Bank conference about FDI, attracting FDI into Europe. And I was together on a panel with the CEO of Ireland agency, which for us, Ireland is sort of the idol. So I think it's also a very big recognition that even internationally, we are being noticed as one of the very efficiently running agencies. And I was presenting how actually focusing on specific sectors brings specific results. And conclusion, you know, in a non-profit organization, what is really profit? So of course, well-defined results, and well-defined results as to the final aim, as well as to the results at every single step of the process. Motivated people in the right places, and so you really have to make sure that the right people with the right skill set are doing what they are supposed to do. Efficient internal processes, efficient cost allocation. So we're always measuring, you know, when somebody comes to me and says, you know, should we go to this event? And I said, well, we have to evaluate what is the possible cost of a lead that we're gonna get, and how does that compare to the time that each project manager spends on, let's say, directly contacting companies. Is it really paying off for us? So we really have to allocate costs efficiently in order to achieve the maximum results. Efficient time allocation, that's very important for a public sector. And of course, a very robust process of measuring results, because as I mentioned in the very beginning, you know, public agencies would always tend to show much better results than they actually are to justify their existence. So really, I think the audits that, let's say, the ministries are doing, it's not about how many reports they're making, but more how robust the processes are actually to measuring the results. So thank you very much. I don't know if there nereikia klausimų.
Do we have any more questions?
I'll be very quick. My name is Leonas. I'm from Hill Plus Null Strategies. At first, I'd like to take this time to thank you for an amazing presentation. And I wanted to ask you if you could give 3 advices to Minister of Economy, what would they be? Thank you.
Ministry or minister? Minister. I think one advice would be, you know, I had an opportunity to talk to the CEO of Invest Ireland, and for me, you know, Ireland that has probably attracted the most investments. Everybody probably knows about Ireland's success story. He's been at the agency for more than 20 years. The continuity is very important because you're actually building relationships with companies, right? But not only that, I had an opportunity to talk to him what works, what doesn't. And number one thing that he said why Ireland has been so successful is because they recognize that the agency is an extremely important part of the economic development. It's not something that you can play with, you know, and allocate people the way you seem fit. He has a meeting with the Prime Minister on a weekly basis, and he has meetings with Minister of Economy, or at least a call almost every day. And the minister is calling him to ask for his opinion about if we implement this change, how this would affect your clients. You know, it's a very different relationship. It's, you know, the agency is being recognized as the competent center, as opposed to, you know, you are the tool for us to implement whatever we think we should be doing. So that's number one, you know, to change that mindset. Number two is actually to really get deeper into how to measure the results of every agency. We, you know, our administration costs and time we spent on administration over the last 9 months increased 5 times. You know, why? You know, after we've done all this work and we're showing these results, all of a sudden, they really want to see whether we're doing things well. How do they measure this? Whether we send a report to the Ministry of Economy on time, based on when, you know, what is written in our contract with the Ministry of Economy. And so somebody spent months going through every single paper, you know, that is out there to see whether it was sent on the 1st of September or the 2nd of September. Who cares? In the meantime, they are not asking us the right questions, whether the results that we're showing are measured correctly. So I think that's where the expertise is needed. And if they are not asking us these questions, I'm pretty sure they're not asking anybody those questions. So these are 2 advice. I'm sure I can come up with many, but I might get into trouble.